Welcome to episode 15 of Diary of a Private Investigator. My name is Nathan and I am the owner of Dolos Investigations based in Sheffield and Doncaster. And yes, for those 23 people watching on YouTube who are curious as to what I actually look like in real life, you will have the privilege of seeing my brand new Dolos Investigations t-shirt. Yes, boys. That's my finger slapping for those who are listening on podcasts and not watching me, by the way. Yes, I've splashed out. I've come into some money and I've bought myself a nice t-shirt with Dolos Investigations on, just for that bit of brand awareness and get that money rolling in, because you've got to speculate to accumulate, and I'm all about the business. Welcome back to the show for those returning. Welcome to the show for those who have just found me and thinking, who is this crazy person? So on today's show, we are going to do the normal introductions, and I've had a listener question come in regarding a rather topical subject, which may or may not make the podcast, depending on my controversial or non-controversial views on whether PC Lorne Castle should be sacked or not. And then we're going to go into some police stories, some of my favourite police stories. So this podcast is obviously, it's my baby. I talk about private investigation, things like that. Generally, I'll sort of say, what do people want to listen to? If you've got any questions, you can send me questions to diaryofaprivateinvestigator@gmail.com. I do get some questions and I do get some lovely comments saying what a great show it is. But there's not much direction in what you want to listen to. So until I get questions, I'm just going to make stuff up as I go along. So I did an interview the last month for somebody else's podcast, and he said to me, no, I've listened to your show, it's good. You don't take yourself seriously, do you? And I thought, is that a backhanded compliment or a compliment or an observation? But I wasn't offended, so I thought, well, clearly I don't take myself seriously. I'm a little bit crazy. There you go. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, you've got the email address. The other thing I always talk about at the start was the buymeacoffee.com/DOAPI, Diary of Our Private Investigator. So I went for a walk at the weekend with my mate, who's quite business savvy. And one of the stories I always like when I talk about my mate Jason is when we got our GCSE results, and I got better results than he did, and his mum looked at him and said to him, "Jason, why don't you try harder at school like Nathan did? Look at his results. He's got really good results. You just mess about." And then obviously Jason then went off to do really well in business and earn a little bit more than I do. So there you go. It's not all about the GCSE kids. It's all about when you get older. So anyway, my mate Jason went for a walk with him, and he's quite complimentary. And if he's complimentary, then he means it. Because if he doesn't mean it, he'll equally just say it's rubbish. So he says, I listened to your podcast. He says, it's really good. He says, I listen to it at night and it sends me to sleep. And I was like, is that meant to be a compliment? He's like, well, yeah, because you've got this really nice voice and it just lets me unwind and forget about my day. And then I just fall asleep. And I'm like, I don't quite think that's the meaning behind this podcast. I'm meant to keep you entertained. And he's like, no, it's really good. You could make a TV series out of what you do. And I'm like, well, if you listen to the rest of the podcast, after the first 10 minutes, you might know what I get up to and whether it could make a TV series or not. But the other thing he said to me, he says, I'm not too sure about this buymeacoffee.com /DOAPI bit. He says, it's all about giving. He says, when you do it, when you have a business, you have to give back to the community. And I see your podcast as a bit of giving back. And you shouldn't really ask for money. Because at the end of the day, it's about your business. You're obviously promoting your business and telling stories and things like that. So I think what I'm going to do is not mention buymeacoffee.com /DOAPI too often, and sort of say to people, obviously all I'm asking for is the price of a coffee. If you think this podcast is good, then buy me a coffee. And on that note, I've got some bad news. Unfortunately, on the way down today, because nobody's given me any money through Buy Me a Coffee for the last couple of months, I was unable to buy a coffee on the way down. Isn't that sad news? No, it's sadder than that. Yeah, it's really sad. And what was when I rehearsed that on the drive down, because obviously I just talked to myself on the way down. When I rehearsed that, I was thinking, how many people, when I say I've got some really sad news, and go, ah, and then when I say, no, it's sadder than that, go, ah, even louder in their head. So if you did it, well done, you're as daft as I am. If you ain't got a clue what I'm on about, then obviously you've never been to Panto. This show is sponsored by Blue Husky, BLUHUSKI. Blue Husky, that's where I get my trackers from. They sell surveillance equipment, so check them out. And all I'll say is if you buy anything from Blue Husky, please leave a comment to say that Nathan from the podcast sent you, and then he'll know that it actually works. So I was listening last month to my podcast, and it was a bit dry, weren't it, really? When I started off doing this podcast, I was sort of saying, oh, it's going to be informative and entertaining. And sometimes they intertwine perfectly, and it's a 50-50 balance. Sometimes it's a bit more entertaining, and sometimes it's a bit more informative. But I listened to last month, and I thought, yeah, a bit dry, that one, Nathan. So what I've done is I've come with today's show, and it's all going to be some of my favourite stories from the cops. So hopefully you are ears pinned back, and you're going to enjoy some of these stories. So first thing I'm going to talk about is topical. This is Diary of a Private Investigator. That's easy for you to say. And on my TikTok, because like I said, I have to now check TikTok because some of my videos go out, so I have to sort of reply to them and look at what pops up. And what popped up on my feed in the last couple of days was there's a police officer that's been sacked, PC Lorne Castle. He's been sacked because essentially what the video has now been released of him grabbing a 15-year-old lad, putting him on the ground, getting astride him in the what they call the open guard position, if you're into your MMA, and he's been arrested. And it's whether the language that he used was too forceful, too abusive, too rude, and whether it was all justified. So I'm just going to share my thoughts with you on the topic. Now, it is going to be as unbiased as I can possibly make it, but it's also going to be informative coming from my point of view as a former police officer. Now, I joined the police back in 1997. Yes, I know, I joined as a drummer boy and I was only 5 years old because obviously looking at this face, I only look 30. But I joined in 1997. There are two videos that stick in my mind and will be with me from the day I die. And one of those videos was a very, 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 very similar situation to what you'll watch. If you obviously, after this, you'll probably go away if you've not seen it already and you watch the video on YouTube. And it shows two police officers in Liverpool just driving along. They get a report of an assault that's taken place. They drive along, they jump out, and there's a gang of similar age kids, teenagers, age sort of 12 to 18 years old. There's about 6 of them. They get out of the car. The cops get out, walk up to them. "No, then, lads, stop what you're doing, stay there." And they stay there. And they walk up to them. "Oh, we've got a report of an assault." And they just sort of stood there talking to these kids, and you're watching it. And it's part of the self-defense module. And so you're thinking, all right, what's going on here? Now, the good news is, on this occasion, one of the lads gets arrested, gets put in the police car, and the police are safe. What it then does is it cuts back to this group of kids who are walking through the streets of Liverpool. And they're walking along, and there are 2 doormen, and one door person is, I would say, is about at least 6'8", at least 20 odd stone, absolute man mountain. And the guy at the side of him, another doorman, I'd say he's equal sort of weight, a little bit shorter, but I'd say 6'4". And they just stood there, and this group of lads walk up, and I think from memory, one of the lads has got a knuckle duster. And they go up and without warning just smash this doorman who's like 6'8", an absolute man mountain, smash him in the face. And he just goes down like a sack of potatoes, broken jaw, quite serious injuries. And then they all then set about the other one like a pack of hyenas around a lion and just absolutely lace 10 bells out of this door person. And then just run off laughing. And CCTV tracks them through the streets of Liverpool watching them, and they're all laughing and joking and having a good laugh. the point of the message is that when it came into the police as just an assault. So when the police stop this group of lads, all they get, the information is an assault has taken place. If they had the correct information about the veracity of the attack, that a weapon was used and how utterly feral these kids were, then maybe the officers wouldn't have just walked up casually and said, now then, lads, what you up to? We just had a report of assault, blah, blah, blah. It could have gone absolutely Pete Tongue. Now, that video is so impactful, it is stuck with me for 20-odd years, nearly 30 years now. So, when you just watch the video, what we don't know is what information as PC Castle had. Obviously, I'm only going on what I've seen on YouTube and a couple of interviews on LBC and other things like that. So, what is information has he got? Has he got the information that this lad has done a serious assault? Or is it simply just a case of he's had a bad day, he's feeling grumpy, whatever? That bit we don't know at this moment in time. So the video will show him getting out of the car, goes up to this lad, grabs hold of him, throws him on the floor. Now, another point to mention is, can you remember however many months ago it was, it might even been last year now, the Manchester airport assault, where the press released a 3-second video of a cop standing on somebody's head, which caused absolute, complete and utter outrage of police brutality. And then, lo and behold, a few days later, the full video gets released, and obviously these officers have had, they've been assaulted. A female officer was punched. I think did she break her nose? Not too sure. And then obviously then it all fits into place. So at this moment in time, we've only got part of the we've got the video, but we haven't got all the background to it. So we haven't got the full facts. Now, was it justified to do what he did? Then clearly it's gone to a discipline panel and they've deemed that it wasn't. I'm not going to agree that shouting and swearing at a 15-year-old lad who you're arresting and the language used, and I didn't hear any sort of racist language or anything like that. So it's just, it's swearing and being abusive and powerful, and he's a grown man and he's only a 15-year-old lad. But what we've got to remember, in today's society, there's a lot of 15-year-old lads out there who are either tooled up, and this lad was. It just so happens that a Stanley knife dropped out of his waistband as he was being arrested. That is slightly irrelevant because he wasn't, PC Castle, on my understanding, didn't know that the knife was there. So he was arresting him in a forceful manner, not because he was carrying a weapon. But again, I don't know, and I'm only going on what I've seen so far. Did he actually know that a weapon was involved? Was there intelligence that this lad's carrying a weapon? Was it in his mind that he might be carrying a weapon, which is why he's taking him to the ground? There are a million things going through your head. And one of the phrases that sort of springs to mind is walk a mile in my shoes. If you're a police officer and you're dealing with situations like this, then you have to be there. And it's great being a keyboard warrior watching it and saying, well, you shouldn't have done that and you shouldn't have done this. And you don't know the full facts. Would I have arrested somebody like that? No, probably not. I would never be shouting and swearing. But again, you don't know what the information is leading up to this. Has he done it with something behind it to try and shock this kid? You do hear him sort of saying, stop resisting, stop resisting. And you do hear the lad on the ground going, oh, what to know what's going off and this, that, and other. So there's more to it. Is it justified? I don't know. Did he go over and above? Yes, he did. I'm not really going to comment on the colleague because the colleague was sort of, I'll describe what the colleague did and then you can infer from my tone of voice what my thought process maybe is that sometimes it's good cop, bad cop, and while he's trying to get the handcuffs on the lad who's resisting, she's sort of saying, oh, calm down, don't be like that. Oh, we need to talk to you. So that's, sometimes it works, good cop, bad cop, and one can get common sense out of somebody while the other one can't. But when you got a lad on the floor who's resisting arrest, I don't know. Another one, was the police officer right to go away and report their colleague for the abuse that he did? The times have changed from when I joined the job, and I dare say now that this is standard procedure. And I do know that when I went through training school, they did say to me, if ever you see anything or witness anything that you don't agree with, you should report it. And I stand by that because as police officers, you serve the public, you serve the community. You are not above the public, and you are not better than them. You just serve them. So, yes, they were right to report this kind of incident to their supervisors, and obviously then it went to the IOA, PC, or whatever they call themselves these days, to investigate. So, I don't really have an issue with, and I don't see that officer as a snitch or a grass or anything like that. You should report things that because inevitably it gets you in trouble if you don't. So, yes, that I don't have an issue with that at all. Now, the possible outcomes that could have happened to PC Castle, just in case you don't know, there's a sliding scale. One is words of advice from a supervisor, and then obviously if it goes down, if it gets investigated, a meeting could have been arranged between the officer and the complainant, who is the lad, who actually, again, from my understanding, didn't progress this. It was done internally with the other officers, so that was probably not on the table. And then you've got a warning, a final written warning, and then dismissal, which is either misconduct or gross misconduct. Now, the problem that I have with him being dismissed is what kind of message does that put out to Joe Public that you've got somebody who has assaulted somebody, an officer goes up and grabs hold of him. Yes, he puts him on the ground. Yes, there was some tussling, but he was being arrested for an assault. Now, the language used, it's not language that I use. It was, I wrote down in my notes, shock and awe. He's gone up to him and he's took him down, he's shouting, he's swearing, and he's in his face, and the kid's clearly panicked. The officer didn't get stabbed, people didn't get injured, he was successfully arrested, so it worked. So there's lessons to be learned, but does the guy need to lose his job for that? And then one of my pet hates, he says, getting on his little soapbox, it's quite a big soapbox actually, is when you watch the videos on YouTube and wherever you watch your videos and somebody's being assaulted, somebody's being beaten up or having a fight, what grinds my gears is that, and certainly with when police are trying to arrest people just get the phones out and film it. And the days are gone now where they see an officer who's in trouble and they think, oh, there's an officer in trouble, I'm going to help them. It's no, I'm going to get my phone out and film it, and then I'm going to send it to press. And unless you've been an officer who's actually fighting and struggling with somebody and the adrenaline's rushing and you've got narrow tunnel vision and you're trying to think your safety and what have you, and then you've got people filming you, it's difficult and it's easy just to have an opinion on it. So I think these are quite important. And what impact is that going to have on the police, and how undermining is that to the current police force to have an officer who's doing the job? Oh, and by the way, this officer was given a commendation not too long ago for outstanding service, which should have been taken into account at his hearing about what an outstanding officer he is and now was. But to be sacked. So what we're going to see now is when every time a police officer has some sort of confrontation, you're going to get the do-gooders in society going, oh, you can't do that, and oh, that's too much force, and you shouldn't say this, and it just undermines policing. If you watch the LBC interview with Nick Ferrer, whatever it's called, I don't know. I only watched it on YouTube. There's a chap on there who's some sort of anti-knife campaigner who has quite a polarising opinion on that. Yes, this officer should have been sacked, and he talks about something called Go Wisely, which for people who don't know what Go Wisely is, it's an acronym that explains that when you do a stop search on somebody, there's certain things that the police should do, i.e. we've got information that you are in an area and we've had a report that you're carrying a knife, and then therefore I'm going to do a stop search on you. And then you're meant to say, well, my name is PC, whatever, I'm from such and such a station. I'm going to fill in this form called a PACE 1, or it used to be when I was in the Corps, and then you are entitled to a copy of this form. And there's all these bits and bobs that you're meant to go through every time you do a stop search. And that's basically so we can keep stats, and also so officers don't go out and randomly stop search everybody all the time. That's a little bit wrong, because on this occasion, the lad was getting arrested for an assault. So you don't have to go through your go wisely because you're locking him up. It wasn't a stop search. It was an arrest. So he got that one wrong, in my opinion, on what I've seen. So have a look at the video, have what your thoughts. But I just thought, so I've been asked what my opinion is as a former officer on that. And was he in the wrong? Yes, he was. But should he have been sacked? I don't think so. So I'll leave that one with you. Anyway, let us lighten up the mood a little bit. Moving on. So, this is Diary of a Private Investigator, but on today's episode, I'm going to talk about some police stories. And the first bit of surveillance I ever did was to do with the murder of a prostitute / sex worker, that's what we call them in today's money, Michaela Haigh. And Michaela Haigh was brutally murdered, stabbed to death, I think it was 19 times, on the 5th of November 2001. So I'd got about just nearly 4 years service in. It happened on my shift on bonfire night. I remember the call coming in, and a colleague of mine went out. I was dealing with something else. A colleague of mine went out to the scene, and I'll always remember it because as she was dying, she gave what they call a dying declaration of evidence as to who the offender was. And my colleague had not got his pocket notebook on him, can you believe? So he finished up writing all over his hand what she was saying, and then his hand became an exhibit. So he had to go back and the scenes of crime officers were photographing his hand to obviously capture the evidence. Now, she was 23 years old. She had a 5-year-old son. And she was murdered. So I was brought on to assist in the surveillance of a suspect. And back in those days, without getting too much tactics away, it was pretty much sit in a vehicle on your own in the middle of the street and watch this address. Now that is a wafer-thin introduction into surveillance, and he says trying to intertwine it into the stories I'm about to tell. Now, prostitutes are real people. When I was young in service, or if I wasn't in the job, you look at prostitutes and you look down your nose on them and saying, oh, they're just dirty and whatever, any kind of derogatory terms. But they are real people. The amount of times that I've dealt with prostitutes who have been seriously assaulted, sexually assaulted, robbed, beaten up by pimps, beaten up by punters. Nobody grows up and thinks, do you know, when I get older, I think I'll be a prostitute. I think it sounds like a right good job, that. So they're on the streets, they're cold, and I don't think I ever met a prostitute who worked the streets who wasn't addicted to heroin. They're all addicted, certainly the ones that I met. So a lot of them have got sort of, they're on... When you're trying to get off heroin, you take something called methadone. Methadone is laced in sugar, and you finish up getting rotted teeth. So you're dealing with these people, and they're unkempt because they're heroin addicts. They don't particularly look after the cleanliness very well. The teeth, the hair, they're emaciated because they don't eat, and they're always thinking about obviously just earning enough money to go out and buy the drugs. That's the sole purpose in life. So I was a beat cop, and back in my day, we actually used to go out on foot and walk and talk to people. Obviously, none of that these days. They're either PCSOs, police community support officers, or you see a cop who blasts past in the car from the next job. But back in my day, I used to go out. And so I'd go out and I talked to them, and they were actually quite good because they were good for end of the day, the people, and second of all, I used to try and recruit them as what they call a CHIS, a covert human intelligence source, i.e. an informant. So you talk to them, you try and pick up bits of information and what have you. So on this particular evening, I'm walking up Portobello Street in Sheffield. It's not like it used to be now. It's been taken over by universities. It's quite nice. So I'm walking up there. So I'm talking to one of the girls, and she was all dressed up. And I'm saying, "Oh, you're looking nice tonight. You're all dressed up. Like, what's going off?" And obviously, I've already painted the picture of the sort of methadone teeth and the straggled and the 6 stone wet through and all that kind of business. Not my particular ideal woman. So I'm talking to her, and she sort of says, "Oh yeah, I'm meeting one of my regulars." So I'm like, "All right, yeah, okay. Is he taking you out then?" So she's like, yeah. She says, "What he does is every month he picks me up, and we go to this house, and there's all these couples there, and we sit around and we drink some wine. And it's quite nice actually. It's quite posh." And then she says, "And then at the end of the night, what we have to do is we all swap partners, and I just go off and sleep with somebody, and then he goes off and sleeps with somebody else." I thought, that's genius, that is. So the guy is picking up a prostitute to go to a swingers party, and he's like, "Well, you go and deal with the prostitute, and I'm going to shag your wife." I was like, that's it tickled me, that one. I don't know if it's going to tickle you, but it tickled me. I thought that guy is actually, he's thought about this. So, yeah. So be careful, all you swingers out there, because you never actually know who you're going to be sleeping with, and always wear protection, boys and girls. Always wear protection. So anyway, moving on. So like I said, it's a wafer thin link here today to talk about the surveillance part of things. So I did my surveillance course back in, I don't know, 2003, 4, 5, something like that. God knows when. And it was when I joined Auto Squad, which, as the name implies, Auto Squad, you're dealing with car crime. So we did the surveillance, and I've talked about on a previous podcast the time where we were working in a particular area of Sheffield, and I got dressed up in me tracky bottoms, and you can't say tracky without putting on a Liverpool accent. Tracky, put on my tracky bottoms and my white socks, and then I took my tracky bottoms into my white socks so I could blend in. But bearing in mind, I'm now a guy who's in my 30s, walking around dressed in like some sort of white Ali G bling type thing, trying to fit in with the local miscreants, shall we say, in this low economic area of Sheffield. I looked right, tea cake. But anyway, so we're doing the surveillance in the area. Now, there was a particular individual who was, I don't want to name him, but he was one of the most wanted people in Sheffield at the time for car crime. And there was a family of them. There were about, I think, four brothers. And he was an absolute plague on society. They broke into cars. They nicked cars. And there's an offence out there called TWOC, taking without owner's consent, which is different to theft, because this was the joyriding. If anybody's old enough out there who does listen to my podcast and remembers the term joyriding, you can't say joyriding because that infers it's fun, and it's not. It's a crime. So it was called TWOC. And the difference between TWOC and theft is that part of the Theft Act, has been informative part of the podcast, is there has to be a intention to permanently deprive, whereas the joyriders or the TWOCers turned around and said, "I have absolutely no intention of permanently depriving. I'm just going to nick this car for a bit, but then I'm going to get out of the car and leave it." And so that offence was. I don't think it was introduced. I don't know when it was introduced. I'm not that good. I haven't done my research yet. But anyway, so we were looking at. So anyway, this kid, wanted times 7 or whatever, one of the most wanted people out there, loads of crimes. And so me and my mate, we jump in our unmarked car and we're like, we'll have a drive around and we'll go and have a look for this kid. And lo and behold, driving around, I'm like, isn't that him down there? I thought, yeah, I think it is. So again, back in those days, your Motorola radio is like it's like a house brick. Have you ever seen the sketch from Only Fools and Horses when Del Boy gets out his brick telephone and leans on the counter and all that kind of business? Well, the old Motorola radios were the big chunky things, and it may or may not have been used as a weapon by cops back in those days. It was that bloody heavy. Obviously, I never did. Got some weight behind them. So anyway, shouts up on radio. Yep, eyes on. Like I said, I'm not going to name the lad, but blah, blah, blah. He's here. So I get out of the car. As soon as I get out of the car, he turns around, he clocks me. Off we set, running through these gardens, over fences, into some, and then we finish up in this house. We go in this house, into downstairs toilet. I kick door open, grab hold of him. We're wrestling and tussling and throwing each other around, and obviously I've got my radio in my hand, and I'm trying to get cuffs on him. So radio goes onto the floor, and then there's a lad. I look to my left, and there's a lad just sort of stood there watching. And this is obviously before the days of stood there just filming me, which is kind of how my brain worked to get onto this story in the first place. He just stood there watching me, and I'm like, I'm a police officer, call the police. And this lad just looks at me and went, don't hurt him. And I'm like, I'm not hurting him, I'm trying to arrest him. I'm a police officer, call the police. He's like, I think you're hurting him. And I'm like, I'm not hurting him, I'm trying to, and I'm like having this fucking, like fists are flying, and I'm trying to get these handcuffs on and detain him and kick him. Anyway, the cheeky sod kicks me radio out into hallway, and I'm like, what you doing? He's like, well, I don't want you to hurt him. And I'm not. So anyway, we're struggling, fighting. Anyway, this kid, because obviously they're all wiry, aren't they? So this kid like managed to get out and pegs it off. So I'm running after him again. So I've left my radio. So I'm running after this lad into gardens, and there's a 6-foot high fence, and he goes running and he jumps up to this fence, and I just managed to grab hold of his legs before he gets down. And as a man, and obviously I'm a man's man, one of the things that really hurt me on this one is that I had to shout for assistance, and it cut me deep because obviously I'm quite a proud person. But I just thought this chase has been going on for absolutely ages. I've kind of condensed the chase, but it was a long bloody chase. Let's just say that the adrenaline had run out by this point, and you were like thinking, I'm getting tired now over the initial chase. So I've grabbed on, and so I shout, assistance. And then it just so happened that my colleague was obviously driving around, and he got out and he heard me. So he comes over, and I've talked about memory. I think it was episode 1 when I talk about your memory and how it changes. And so obviously my memory is he just like, he kicked the door open and sort of strode through like Superman or some sort of hero, and he like just like strode through with his cuffs in his hand, and he like just walks over and goes and like gets the cuffs on, and so this kid's arrested. So we drag him off. I go back, get me a radio. I'm like, why the hell didn't you chuffing like bring police? And he's like, it's my cousin. So I'm like, all right, brilliant. So I get me radio, and we go back and into the car, and we go back to police station, and he's obviously booked in and what have you. So we go up to Auto Squad, and obviously what you're expecting is tea and medals and jam donuts and wow, well done, high fives all around and hurrah and chest beating. And walked in, and they're all just sat there, just some at computer, and oh, you're back then. So I'm like, yeah, we've just caught like Mr. X, like brilliant. And they went, all right, did you get him? And I'm like, yeah. And they went, all right, well, we heard you shout up, but we thought, well, you'll never catch him, so we didn't even leave office. Cheers. So I've had this foot chase for God knows how many minutes, scrapping and fighting, and you just like went, you'll never catch him, I'm not even going to leave the office. Oh, cheers, easy. So yeah, that was another time that I didn't get a commendation from the police for doing work. And then what rubbed the salt in is that during that, I was actually going to title this story, Nathan, why don't you wear a watch anymore? But I've sort of gone past that bit. And Nathan, why don't you wear a watch anymore? Well, I'll tell you actually, listeners, why I don't wear a watch anymore. Because during that fight, my watch got broken, as did the gold chain that I used to wear, which was obviously fashionable in the 90s. My chain got broke as well. So I did a report. submit it to the superintendent and sort of said, look, my watch has been broken, my chain has been broken. Can I have a payout to get them repaired? And it came back saying, no, that's just part of being a police officer. Cheers, easy. So I put my broken chain and my broken watch next to the commendation that I didn't get in the drawer, and I've never worn a watch since that day. So another story. We like these stories, don't we? Another story. Roll me fake sleeves up on my t-shirt. So I'm in Auto Squad, and we get given a decent car for a change. We got a Ford Escort. This is like, I feel like something at professionals now, like Bodie and Doyle, and it's like, slow down, I'm doing nearly 30. So we get this Ford Escort, and obviously up until this time, all the unmarked cars in the cops are diesel Astras that like you put your foot down and like you just like slowly but move like a passing horse like walks past you and stuff, like really garbage cars. So we get this Ford Escort on loan, which is petrol, and it's obviously got a bit of boot behind it. So again, me and mate were driving around on this particular estate looking for these particular car criminals, and we see them, and we're like, in that so and so that, and so and so's old passenger, and that and the other kid who's wanted is in back seat. Right, brilliant. So we shout up, right, we're behind a car. Can we have a marked car to pull it for us? Because obviously it's not like TV drama where we drive around and we put a blue thing on roof and we pull people over. You need a marked car to pull them over. And I think we had one, but back in those days you had to plug it into a cigarette lighter, and they were never working, and bulb had gone or cigarette lighter had broke, or it was just right heap of junk. So we get behind it. So we're obviously giving commentary. And so we're driving around these streets, and then they spot us in rear view mirror, and we're like, where's a marked car? We need a marked car. Yeah, we're on our way. Anyway, so they see us, and so they start to floor it through Sheffield. So we follow. Now I'm going to choose my language here very, very carefully, because in the pursuit manual of South Yorkshire Police of the day, there was a difference between a follow and a pursuit. Now, the definition between the two was a little bit confusing and not quite clearly made out. Now, as a standard driver of an unmarked car, I am authorised to follow. I am not pursuit trained, so I could not do a pursuit. So I'm following this car along the streets of Sheffield, and we're driving along, and obviously they're trying to evade us and we're following, and then we come onto this particular road in Sheffield, and it's quite a steep hill. It's a really steep hill. So we come onto this hill and we're driving up, and they get to this old pub. I might as well describe it. If anybody's listening to this in Sheffield, I'm going to paint the picture. So we're driving through Norfolk Park, and we get to the old Felbrick pub, and so we get there, and a good old police terminology, and they decamp. So the passengers get out, run off. So my passenger gets out, he starts chasing them. Driver sets off again. So I've got a decision to make. So I'm like, well, I'm going to follow the car because it might be a stolen car for all I know. So I shoot off, he shut off, he was the one giving the commentary. Again, I got my big fat radio, but it's on passenger seat. So of course, first corner we take, that shoots off into door pocket. So now I'm following this car, can't get commentary, waiting for uniform. My oppo who's giving commentary's now got out. So we're driving along, and I'm just thinking, this is all getting just a little bit stupid now. I'm not going to be able to catch this guy. So I decide to abort the follow and sort of think, do you know what, I'll just stop. So I park up, and then in the distance, the car's obviously tremming. That's a Yorkshire term for going rather fastly. So he's tremming along this road, and it's a crossroads, and he obviously decides to chance his luck, go straight through the crossroads, get sideswiped, glass and smoke shoot up in the air, the car flips onto its roof. I'm sat there parked up thinking, that's not good. That's not good, that. So I start the engine, set off. drive down this road to the scene of now an accident, we used to call them RTAs, but they're RTCs now because it's not an accident, it's a collision. So what may or may not be a stolen car is on its roof. So I'm looking at it and thinking, people are dead here. This is not special. As I'm stood there watching it, I get out of the car, and then all of a sudden the driver starts crawling, because obviously they're always made of rubber, aren't they, these criminals? So he starts crawling out of the broken window, gets up, runs off. I'm like, any other person would be like paraplegic, dead, whatever. This guy just like runs off. So I set off running, catch him. He then goes, falls on the floor. I'm like, no, we need to get back. Like, people might be hurt. So I literally pick the guy up and just drag him back to the scene. Put him on the ground, get the cuffs on. All of a sudden, now all the police cars arrive. Obviously, it's a big scene. Fire brigade arrive. Everybody arrives. Traffic cops arrive. He gets locked up. Traffic interview me. Right, what's gone off? Right, yeah, I've been giving commentary, this, that, and the other. Okay. Again, high fives all around. We've got our men. Jobs are good 'un. So I then get papers served on me for an unauthorised pursuit. And I get traffic inspector and get papers served. So I'm looking at a disciplinary, which is where we've come from, the PC Castle story. This is where my head works. So I get interviewed formally. And so I'm on for, I think it was something like 2.5 hour interview. What happened then? How fast were you going? What about this? What about that? So I'm sort of going through it all. And this is not an exaggeration because I remember it. It's been embedded into my brain. So the inspector turns around and says, right, we have a witness on Norfolk Road who says the following. And so he gets his statement out and he says, there was a screech of loud tyres, and I looked down the road to see 2 cars slightly oversteering and weaving in and out of cars in a slalom-type fashion. They accelerated up to the road at approximately 60 miles an hour. The second car was approximately 6 feet from the bumper of the first car, and I could see that the driver was laughing maniacally. I can never say that word, like a maniac, basically. Maniacally. As it passed us, and I took hold of my elderly mother and shoved her out to the side of the road. And I'm like, okay, so that's a bit of an exaggeration. Who's that then? And the guy's job title was Senior Formula One Driving Instructor. And I was like, might be a bit hard to discredit him then. So I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate for me then. So he given a statement, and then there was a statement from Mum, and Mum sort of says, oh yeah, there were a couple of cars, they were going a bit quick. That was about it. So what do you have to say about that? And I'm like, well, that's clearly an exaggeration. Clearly I might have been pushing 33, 34 miles an hour, I'm guessing, because it's only a 30 zone. I definitely wasn't going that fast. Are you sure? I'm like, no, definitely. I would. No, not at all. All right, maybe 34 and a half. I definitely weren't going any quicker than that. And he's like, oh, well, how close was you? And I was like, well, a bit close, but I went 6 foot. I mean, I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall, and to be driving at that kind of speed, 34 miles an hour, and to be only 6 feet away, which if you're an American, that's about 1.5 meters, God knows, from a bumper, he's obviously clearly dangerous, and it just never happened. He's like, oh, what about your understeering and your over? I'm like, I don't even know what understeering is. So I drove onto the road, and there may have been a screech of tyres, but there you go. I might need to check air next time I get in a police car. So, and then there was a witness at the scene of the crash. And the witness at the scene of the crash says this car came through the junction, smashed into another car, cars flipped, glass, everything else. And then several moments later, a car just sort of steadily pulled up. A guy got out, ran after the driver, caught him, brought him back. And then I realised that this person was a police officer. Okay, so the job takes me for, they wanted me to do me for dangerous driving. But in the end, it got lowered down to driving without due care and attention. So I'm a police officer in the job, and it's what made it worse was so they charged me, and I have to go to court. And it's about the time that it was my 30th birthday. And I'll always remember it because we went out for a meal, and I think the trial was like next week. And it's my 30th birthday, and I'm sat there and I'm grumpy as fuck. And I'm in this restaurant, just sat there with a face like thunder. Jason, my mate, who I've mentioned at start, he's there with his wife, and I'm there with my wife. And they're like, bloody hell, Nathan, like, cheer up. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be 30 next week, and I'm going to court next week, and I could lose my job. And obviously not to, I'm obviously trying to add a bit of humour to it, but not to underplay it. Obviously, losing your job is pretty big, pretty deep when it's your career and you love it. And I'm like, this is just rubbish. And obviously, now I'm looking back, I wish I were 30 again. I'm a bit older than that now, but obviously at the time, like, it's a bit of a, get to 30, like nearly dead. So we go to court, and I've got a barrister who's been paid for by the Federation, which is nice. So we go into the room, and the Federation's there, and he basically drops this pile of papers on the table, and he's like, this is your interview. And it's something like 136 pages long. And he says, all right, I've gone through your interview. You need to be aware that on page 96, paragraph 2, line 4, you're asked about how close you were, and you say that you may have been a little bit close. Just be aware that they might ask you that when you're in the dock, and you obviously need to give an answer for it. Now, the good thing about solicitors and barristers, as much as you might think they're a bit dodgy, my experience is that they don't actually tell you what to say. They don't give you reasons. They just sort of explain what the defences are and say, so what happened? So that's what the barrister said to me. And so the barrister looks at me and he says, how fast were you going? So I looked at him and said, is this on record or off record? And he looks me straight in the eyes and says, everything is on record. So I said, I think I was doing about 34 miles an hour. So we like both look at each other and like, right, okay. Right, okay. I can represent you then. I'm like, good. So I go into the courtroom and get in the defendant's box, and the prosecutor comes in, who's a solicitor. So for those not completely aware of the legal system, you obviously have your solicitors, and then the barristers are the super intelligent, super good, charge ridiculous amounts of money, but clearly know the stuff. Now, this poor solicitor, I later found out, had been drafted in from another court because she wasn't quite competent and they didn't want her there. So she got drafted over to this court. She walks in and these papers are like, I don't know, say I'm obviously measuring with my hands, but if this is a podcast, that's no good, is it? So these papers are about 18 inches deep of just bundles of papers. And she gets there and she unwraps them, and the magistrate sort of turn around to say, right, are you ready to proceed? To which she says, I've not really had time to read the court papers. I've only just received them this morning. To which the magistrates turn around and say, well, we are here, we are ready. And turn around to my barrister and say, are you ready? And he's like, yes, I'm ready. Well, it appears that we're all ready. We can give you an adjournment for 1 hour to read the papers and prepare your case. So off she goes. So we adjourn for a couple of hours, come back at dinner time. And first witness is my colleague. And so the prosecution of how fast was Nathan going? And he's like going, about 33 miles an hour, 34 miles an hour. And she's scratching her head and she's going, yes, but wasn't that dangerous? And he's going, no, it wasn't dangerous at all. Were you fearing for your safety? No, not at all. He drove perfectly safely under the conditions. So she's obviously trying to get out, and he's like, no, not at all. So he goes away. So Murray Walker comes up, Mr. Formula One driving instructor man, and he's like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was outrageous, and tyres were screeching, and women were screaming, and kids were running home, and this happened, and I had to grabbed hold of my mother, and it was outrageous, it was disgusting, and I never seen such dangerous driving all my life. And then mother comes onto the stand, and she's like, well, they were going a bit quick. And then at the scene of the crash, the last witness comes on and sort of says, well, to be fair, the cop car was absolutely nothing to do with it. Just there was a crash, and then all of a sudden the car arrived, and he got out. So I'm sat there thinking, might be losing my job, might be losing my livelihood. It's all going wrong. So, and then my barrister stands up, and like a scene from A Few Good Men, for those who know the film, my barrister stands up, and there's some manuals out there called Stone's Justices Manuals, and if you imagine manuals like tomes that you would find in Harry Potter's library, they're like knocking the dust off, and they're like each volume is like 2,000 pages long, and there's several volumes of them, and he sort of licks his finger, and he opens up like volume number 2, and he says, Your Worships, if I could just draw your attention to page 1235 of Stone Manuals, volume 2, paragraph 2, you will see that a stated case happened where in 1837, RV whatever, where witnesses cannot give the same opinion on the same witness that they witnessed. The court has no, what's the word now? I'll have to pause this bit now. Oh, no option. The court has no option but to dismiss all the witnesses when they contradict each other. Therefore, I put it to you, Your Worships, that without any witnesses, you have no evidence. And in the courtroom, now, for those who don't know about the court systems, magistrates are what we call lay people. They are people of upstanding people in the community. They do good for the community. They have decent jobs, generally directors or whatever. But they have very, 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 very little input into law. And below them is what they call a stipendatory, if I can say that word. And they are very, very clever, and they are legally trained, and they generally give advice to the magistrate. So obviously the magistrates are sort of going, don't know what's gone off there. So the stipe turns around and says, shall we take an adjournment? So yes, well, very good. Well, let's take an adjournment. So like stand up, so obviously in court you have to stand up, so everybody stands up, and then we'll take an adjournment. So they walk out, and basically they walk out so the stipe can explain the law to the magistrates and what's happening. So they all walk off, and then my barrister stood there like nodding his head, and the prosecutor stood there like all of a fluster, shuffling papers, like not knowing what's going off. And so what feels like 400 hours, which is probably 5 minutes, the magistrates walk back into the courtroom and sit back down, and they're like, Mr. Smith, we have listened to what you have said, and we agree. There is now no evidence in this case, and the case is dismissed. And so I stood up and was like, thank you very much. So off we walk. So that was nice. That was a nice 30th birthday. And so I get the inspector, the traffic inspector that interviewed me, he gave me a PDJ entry, now like professional development journal, and obviously you have to, in the COPS, you have to write about yourself and say, today I did a really good job, I'm really good, well done. And then obviously you have to put one in there, you go, oh, today I didn't do this so well, I have to improve myself. And it's just absolute garbage, waste of time. But we get all these PDJ entries. So the inspector wrote me a PDJ entry, and he actually made it really positive. And he said throughout the investigation, throughout all the pressures that he had, every opportunity, because I was a PC back in those days, PC Hall carried himself with professionalism and what have you, and I was like, that's quite good, that. And the I shouldn't really say this, but I'm going to say it because I'm cutting edge. I'm edgy. So, and again, this is the sign of the times from the 90s and 2000s. So the inspector's nickname was Seal Pup, because everybody wanted to stove his head in. Ooh. I don't know if that'll make the edits or not. I'll let we'll see if that one makes the cutting floor or not. So that was another story from my days where the job took me to court, which was nice. I felt supported there, but again, arguably, I may or may not have been going too fast and above the speed limit in the pursuit of known criminals in possible stolen cars with stolen goods on. But hey, there you go. What we like for time?
About an hour.
Oh, we already, are we? Flipping out, it's flown. How long were we on Castle for? About 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Right. All right. Okay.
To close it off, I think what we've got's good.
Yeah.
If you've got any more stories, like save them for the next one.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I think
Yeah. I'll do a part 2.
Yeah.
Do a part 2. Right. So that was nice. I'm looking down at my notes and I'm conscious of time. And what I try and do is I try and keep these podcasts to around the 40 to 50 minute mark. And that's only 2 of the stories that I've got. I've got a couple of other stories here from a time in Auto Squad. So I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to do a part 2. So if you have enjoyed these stories and you want more, then by all means, send me an email to the email address. And what I would really like is, once you listen to the podcast, can you leave me a 5-star review, please? I don't normally ask for, well, I do actually ask every month. What am I on about? But it really actually helps the podcast to grow because the algorithms look at the reviews, they listen to the listenership, and it will literally take you 30 seconds just to go on, pop a 5-star review, but also leave a comment. It's the comments that make the biggest difference, not the fact that you just left a 5-star review. Please just put a couple of lines in there saying, Nathan is one of the most handsome people I've ever met. Nathan, can I have your phone number? No, you can't because I'm married. Or just anything like that. Or it was informative and entertaining. Anything. That'd be great. And as always, if you don't like the podcast, why on earth have you got this far in the podcast? I don't understand. So don't leave me any negative reviews because that reflects upon yourself. You obviously just hate yourself. So don't do that. Do remember that this show is sponsored by Blue Husky. So if you are an investigator out there and you want some quality kit, do buy it from Blue Husky, please, or at least have a look at them. And if you do, leave a comment so Mike knows I've sent you. And then Mike just might give me some free stuff or whatever. I was going to say reach around, but you can't say that because, or maybe you can because it's an 18. I might get a bit of a kickback from Mike if I keep plugging his store. So do check it out. They are a family-run business. They have been going for a long, long time, over 10 years. You get quality products built by surveillance operatives for surveillance operatives. Gonna leave you with Moan of the Month because I quite like it, to be fair. Like I said last time, I've reached an age now where I like moaning. And if your listenership of a similar age to me, we like to moan, don't we? So there's loads I can moan about. But today, I'm going to moan about myself and what a shit business person I am. I'm absolutely terrible at business. So obviously I do this job, 1, because I enjoy it, and 2, because it pays the mortgage. But I'm not business orientated. If I were, I'd charge a lot more and I'd be a lot bigger and more successful. So this month I had a phone call, and it was from somebody who wanted to do a background check on a partner. In this day and age, clearly I'm of an age again where I met my missus in Leadenhall nightclub, like chucking shapes, how you doing type thing. But in this day and age, not everybody does, and people meet each other online and what have you. And they don't always know everything about them because obviously an online persona is I earn 100K, I run my own business and I'm really successful and I'm a really nice guy and I like classical music, good sense of humour. So this person had met somebody, not quite sure on who they were, and the story went along the lines of the bank account got frozen because of fraud, and can you just lend me some money and this, that, and other, and then you're listening to this person explain the circumstances, and it turns into more money, until this person's lending them a lot of money. And then it kind of dawned on them they're not quite sure like who they live with or where they live. And so can you do a background check? So I'm talking to this person and I'm listening to it all and I'm like, oh yeah. And part of my job, as I've probably said in the past, is I'm part psychologist, to be fair. I sort of sit down and listen to people's problems and help them through it all emotionally as well as the investigation side of it. So I listened to it all and she's like, so what can you do me? What advice have you got for me? And so I said, well, I've got two answers, basically. I says, the first answer is why on earth are you seeing this person? I'm like, clearly there's red flags all over the place. They're taking money off you. You don't really know who they are, what they are. Why the hell are you in a relationship with this person? It doesn't, to me, sound like a lasting, loving relationship. Even if I find out that they are who they say they are, do you really want to settle down with somebody like this that's like taking money off you? So that's one answer. Second answer is yeah, I can do a background search. It costs X amount of pounds, and I'll find out who they are and what have you. And so, yeah, thanks. So obviously she thanked me and very helpful. And obviously I went on for a bit longer than what I've just done there, but I gave her loads of advice. And so she never rang me back. And clearly she just went away and went, why should I blow all that money? Because this guy's clearly a knob and I'm just not going to see him. And afterwards I was like thinking, I could have made some money out of that. But hey, like I've always said, you'll always get honest advice from me. And if I lose some customers, I do, because I'm just too honest and just think, why the hell are you going out with this person? What I should have done is said, oh, yeah, that's terrible. What you need to do is give me a couple of £100 and I'll find out who they are. And so, yeah. So boys and girls, if you want some honest advice, come to the T-shirt, come to Dolos Investigations, if you like what I'm on about. Thank you ever so much for listening. Thanks for the feedback. In fact, actually, just before I go, Chris sent me a message. He sent me an email. Chris, thank you very much. Everybody likes to hear the name mentioned on a podcast. I'm into Toy Soldiers. I listen to Toy Soldier podcasts, and when they mention me, it's great. So, Chris, I'd just like to let you know that your podcast is honestly spot on. It's got everything from great stories, experiences, drama, and laughter, not to mention your sense of humour, which is very similar to mine. Chris, you must be one twisted individual if you have a sense of humour like mine. Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, guys and girls. If you do like it, send me something because it goes straight to my head. And if you could leave a review, that'd be smashing. Until next time, thanks everybody.